Let's talk about fibromyalgia. Someone put a comment on one of my posts recently asking about the analysis of fibromyalgia in the Social Security disability process. If you're new here, my name is Maria Bermudez. I'm a disability attorney with over 17 years in this practice area, helping clients from the initial application stage through federal court. Social Security has a very specific ruling when it comes to fibromyalgia and how they assess that specific condition. And I'm going to give you kind of how, in my opinion, my experience, how I've seen it assessed over the year. Is it possible to get awarded fibromyalgia, only? It is possible, but typically those people do have other problems. That's just the reality of what I've seen. So when you're looking at it as a primary condition, what are the things that we're looking at? So we're looking at whether there's treatment with a rheumatologist. If somebody has fibromyalgia and they're not treating with a rheumatologist, it's kind of just like it's a bust from the beginning, right? Like they're only treating with primary care. Treating with the actual rheumatologist is something that I have observed and what Social Security does value greatly. So that's one thing. The other thing is a history of treatment. So fibromyalgia is one of those conditions where it's diagnosed by way of process of elimination a lot of times. So they're doing lots of lab testing to see if you have any orthopedic related, musculoskeletal related explanations for your tenderness and your pain and the joint problems that you're having. Social Security is looking at whether or not you have had the battery of tests that come a long time before you're diagnosed with fibromyalgia. The diagnosis for fibromyalgia is known to include specific physical examination findings that involve trigger points or tender points where your doctor, your rheumatologist is touching different parts of your body and testing for sensitivity or abnormalities in that physical exam. So if you're going to a rheumatologist and they are not touching you, if they are not performing physical examinations on you, then that means you're probably not going to have the findings that Social Security is looking for. So you have to be getting physical examinations by a rheumatologist over an extended period of time to have the findings that are necessary for Social Security to adequately evaluate your diagnosis of fibromyalgia. You have got to be having the physical examinations over a period of time. I'm talking about 3 months, 6 months, longer would be great. And those physical examinations will show if there's abnormalities and they support your diagnosis of fibromyalgia. So moving forward, similar to many other conditions, with Social Security, there are cases that are more clear-cut or conditions, and the way Social Security looks at them that are more clear-cut because there might be a listing associated, right? Like there's a whole dictionary of conditions where, for example, multiple sclerosis, arthritis, where if certain factors exist, you're going to be found to be disabled because you meet the criteria of Social Security's listings. But there's a lot of conditions that if they don't have a specific listing in that dictionary, we call it the blue book, the listing of impairments. If they're not included in there, or if you, as the claimant, if your specific condition doesn't meet the requirements of that listing, what Social Security is going to do is they're going to be looking at what we call the RFC, residual functional capacity. That is like, what are you capable of? What are your symptoms? What are your limitations? And RFC is different capabilities. So exertional demands, postural demands. But what does that mean? That means how long can you sit for? How long can you stand for? How long can you use your hands for? People that have fibromyalgia tend to have pain in various different areas, all over the place sometimes. So that could mean that you can't sit for long, you can't stand for long. That could mean that you can't use your hands for long. So what is Social Security going to be looking for? Evidence of that. Diagnostic testing, right? If there's labs, x-rays, that sort of thing. So they're always looking at test results to see if there's any abnormalities. And then with fibromyalgia cases, they're definitely looking at the physical exam to see if there's any abnormalities. If you have a hard time moving your arms, your shoulders, your hands, whatever, it's going to show in these physical examinations. This is what we call abnormalities. Whereas a normal person may be able to like move back and forth fluidly, easily. Someone with fibromyalgia might not be able to do that, and their doctor is documenting it. Okay. So Let me just break this down for you. If it was me and my case involved fibromyalgia and that was a reason why I felt like I couldn't work, I'm going to be making sure that I'm consistently treating with a rheumatologist and that I'm treating with a rheumatologist that is routinely doing physical examination and that they have done all the testing that is normal and comes with that particular diagnosis. I think labs is definitely something that we see. Lab testing, they're checking your inflammatory markers. They're checking to see if your rheumatoid factor is positive, could be something else, right? Labs, that's one thing. X-rays, maybe MRIs. I don't know. It depends on the rheumatologist, right? But so I'm making sure that I'm treating with a rheumatologist that has done all the testing that is consistent with a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And then I'm going to do my ongoing testing and follow their recommendations. Sometimes they recommend physical therapy. They recommend aqua therapy. And what Social Security is looking at is like, okay, did they follow the recommendations? Did it help? If they have followed the recommendations and it didn't help and they still have these physical exam abnormalities and they still have these limitations in their ability to stand, walk, use their hands, etc., and that lasts over a year, well, then you very well might be entitled to benefits based on a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. But this is what they're looking for. They're looking for the consistent treatment and they're looking for abnormalities on physical exam. And they're looking to make sure that you got the testing and the treatment that is consistent with a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. So I hope that helped. Fibromyalgia can be, complicated in terms of its treatment and the diagnosis itself, but people do get awarded based on fibromyalgia. And if you're interested in learning more about it, I would recommend you definitely review Social Security specific ruling when it comes to fibromyalgia cases and how they are assessing that condition. So thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.